What's happening, Cardinal Nation? Welcome back to the CardinOLL podcast, a classroom podcast that has been designed to interview expert leaders and gain their insight, which will help take your leadership and your learning to the next level immediately. Let me start off with another great quote today. Hope lies in dreams, in imagination, and in the courage of those who dare to make dreams become reality. That quote was made by Dr. Jonas Salk. He was a virologist and in medical research who played a key role in the developing of the first successful polio vaccine. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, you don't want to miss any of our guests this month, as we will be interviewing some of the top leaders in the community and at the university who had the courage to turn their dreams into reality. These amazing guests are doing a phenomenal work by giving others hope as well, so their dreams can come true. So be sure to listen to the CardinOLL podcast National Month of Hope edition this month on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and you can always view us every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. I am Dr. C. Sean Owens, also known by my moniker you can see right there below on the screen, at the Professor Owens. I want to go ahead and bring in my great co-host, the one, the only, the incomparable, Dr. Andrew McCart. Dr. McCart, how are you today?
Well, Dr. Owens, it's great to be here. As our guest said before we started, the sun's shining out there and it's starting to warm up. Spring is in the air, and I'm thrilled to be here. I'm excited about what we're going to learn. Doing some research on this guest, very successful career in a lot of different arenas. So not just metaphorical arenas, but sports arenas and the business arenas. So I've got some questions and I'm ready to take some notes. I hope you are too.
Oh, listen, the pen. Actually, I have two because I'm learning, right? I'm learning. Pens run out around here with our guests. I have two pens ready to take all the notes today. But before we do that, let me give a quick shout out to Mela Mo for listening on Apple Podcasts, who gave us a 5-star rating and said Professor Owens is a wonderful teacher. Forget all that. And that the podcast is definitely worth listening to. If you have an aspiration of taking on a future leadership role and just in general, just to have fun and something to listen to. So thank you, Mela Mo, whoever you are, wherever you are. We appreciate the rating and we appreciate the comments. And so now, before we jump into today's classroom podcast with our special guest, I want to let our listeners and viewers know this, that if you are ready to learn to lead with compassion and expertise, in an ever-changing world, you can enroll in UofL's Bachelor in Organizational Leadership and Learning. This degree's unique prior learning assessment course awards you tuition-free college credit for your work experience and can allow you to save up to $23,000 on your undergraduate degree. That's right. You can save up to $23,000 from prior learning. Learn more about the value and the amazing benefits of the BSOLL degree. You can check us out at UofL.me/BSOLL-podcast. Again, that's UofL.me/BSOLL-podcast. Now that that's out of the way, let me introduce our guest for today. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be amazed by our guest today. The hard work that went into getting this guest, I can't even begin to go into explaining how it was. The stars are just aligning up for the CardinOLL podcast, and you're going to love it. So our guest, he is from the great state of Kentucky. He earned his undergraduate degree from the University of Louisville. So Cardinal Nation, he's one of our own. He played a very key and pivotal role in the University of Louisville men's basketball program, winning its first ever national championship in 1980. He's an 11-year NBA veteran. He's the reason the number 35 is retired bi-coastally. That's right. It's retired on the East Coast in the great city of Louisville and the West Coast in Salt Lake City, Utah. He played for the Utah Jazz. He's an entrepreneur and he loves the community of Louisville. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you right now, go get your pens, your pencils, your notepads, your iPads, your memo boards, your note cards, whatever it is you take notes on as we head into the classroom to learn from today's teacher. He's the one, he's the only, he's got his doctorate degree on the basketball court. That's why they call him Dr. Duncanstein. He's the one, the only Mr. Darrell Griffith. Mr. Griffith, how you doing this morning?
Professor Owens, I'm doing great. How you doing?
No, doing great. Glad to have you here. And,
good.
Really appreciate the time. So we're looking forward to this interview.
Awesome. Let's go with it.
Let's go. So here on the Cardinal Call podcast, we don't waste a lot of time. So you got the introduction. So Mr. Griffith, now we got to go to work, right? Now we got to go to work. So John Maxwell, who's a leadership expert, said this. He says, a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and then shows the way. So let me ask you, Mr. Griffith, how do you define leadership?
Pretty much in the same format. Maybe wording might be the way, a leader leads by example. So that's to show the way. You got to be able to, first of all, you got to have extreme confidence within yourself because the leader is displaying a lot of attributes to the people that you're leading. For me, it was, first of all, your kids, if you have any kids, your household, you got to be leading in your household. So you got to demand that respect. And on the basketball court, I had to demand that respect, and that respect came by my play and the hard work that I put in. And translating that to just the business field, it's the same principles. You got to put in the work, and you got to have a vision, and you got to have goals for yourself. And if you have goals for yourself as a leader, then you're going to work hard to achieve them goals. And the people that are following you, that you are part of a group, it'll show automatically. It'll show by the work that you put in. It'll show by the confidence that you display to the group that you're part of. All that'll be kind of a natural scenario that'll equal being a leader and show leadership.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Mr. Griffith, we're still a young podcast. We're about 10, 12 episodes in at this point in time. And I want to, you brought out some key things that, again, I always like to highlight some of the unique differences that all of our guests, we all asked them this question. Some of the key words you brought out, I thought that were unique and different this time was confidence. We haven't had a guest mention confidence before when it comes to leadership. I think that's very key too, because like you said, as the leader, you are out in front, and sometimes you may not know the way, but you have to be confident that you're going to get where you're trying to get to.
Exactly. Confidence within yourself is contagious, and the group can see that. The group can see that you're a confident person, and your confidence is going to lead you to put in everything it needs to be put in as far as the work that you need to be excelling in the field that you are trying to be in. My field was basketball at the particular time. As far as the classroom, I put in work there too. I had two goals when I went to University of Louisville. My number one goal was to get my degree in 4 years. I didn't want to come back. My father always told me, don't waste your time. If you're doing something, get it done. And going to school, my path was 4 years to get my degree. And I got my degree in 4 years. And my second goal that I set for myself was to win a national championship. Just a little history. I was the number one high school player in the nation coming out in 1976. Got all the pro contracts, decided to go to take the educational route. My dad wasn't going to let me go pro. He said, no, you ain't ready. But I went the educational route. So in that realm, NBC had a gentleman, NBC or CBS had a gentleman by the name of Dick Schaap. His son's on TV now. And they came down and interviewed me and said, hey, when you make your decision, we want to broadcast it nationally. So it's almost like the decision day where the guys put the caps on. Now it's totally different, laid back. There's a hotel on 2nd and Liberty called Holiday Inn. They toured down. I had a press conference there. My parents were there. And the coach used to my high school coach and the press from all over the country. And in that decision, I made it to go to the University of Louisville. But what I did there, I set myself a goal in front of the nation. I said, before I leave, we will win a national championship at the University of Louisville. That's the vision part of it and the confident part of it. That all was inspired by by one of my childhood heroes, which is Muhammad Ali. You know, for a period of time, Ali predicted for about 2 years in a row what round he was going to knock you out in, and it came true.
Right.
So he put it out there. He had the confidence to make it happen. I mean, people don't realize that's hard to do.
Right.
2 years. Okay, you going, Dr. McGriff, we're going to fight. I'm knocking you out in the 8th round. Professor Owens, this next fight, are you going down in 4? And it happened. You know, so that was amazing to me. But what it put in my mind is that set yourself some lofty goals. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there and try to achieve it. And that was inspired by Muhammad Ali to do that. You know, getting my education part was the most important piece of it. You know, I worked hard. You know, my whole goal was to, first of all, I chose communication from high school. We had a class called DECA, Distributed Education of America, and in that class, Dr. Peter Piccarella, never forget him, he sat us down, and it was a bunch of file cabinets on this one wall. He said, for the first 2 weeks, this is a goal-oriented class. I want you to pick your future. It's all in that file cabinet. Doctor degrees, lawyer degrees, in my case, communication, all kind of different folders on courses that you could take going into college. So me getting a lot of publicity, and when I came across communication, I said, I need to step up my game on the communication end. I'll be in front of the camera a lot. I'm already in front of the camera as a young high school students. So I I took the communication file and looked at it in heart. And I said, this will be something I think I want to pursue in my next phase of education. So I chose communication. And fortunately for me, when I went to the University of Louisville, they had just opened my degree came under UC, which they don't have anymore, University College. It came under, they had a brand new telecommunications facility in the basement of Davidson. I mean, new cameras. I mean, the whole studio was set up like a TV broadcast. And that was pretty helpful to me going forth, you know, being in front of TV cameras, doing interviews like I'm doing with yourself now. We learned a lot, you know, learned voice and diction. We learned everything in the TV studio, the lighting, the cameras, the directors. We learned it all. So it gave me a big heads up into the verbal part of me being in front of the camera and the course of my career.
Man, that's an amazing story. That's an amazing story. I liked every part of it. You know what I mean? I liked every part of it. Dr. McCart, what do you got?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Griffith. And that's I love the Muhammad Ali analogy where he would call what round he would knock somebody out in. That's the closest we can get to that is we're going to tell you what night we'll give you a pop quiz and then we give it to you. No, those are great analogies there. And I want to ask you a little bit about sort of in doing our research for the show. You've got a lot of great people in your life that help guide you. I mean, there's an interview with ESPN here on my other screen that says they're asking you how'd you make the adjustment from basketball, and we'll get more into all this in a bit. But you said you had people in your life guiding you, saying, "Look, this isn't going to last forever. You got to condition yourself, think toward the future, and make plans." And there's another example in the interview where you're talking about running some ideas by an attorney before you go into business, and just surround yourself with the right people there. So in that, who do you think are some of the people that exemplify leadership in your life, people that you look up to, whether they're even real or fictitious? But as you talk about that definition of leadership, who are some of those people you look up to?
Well, I had great leaders when you look back. The first two great leaders that entered my life was my mom and my dad. They were the greatest leaders that any person really can have to set them on the next path. They install integrity in you. They install how hard you need to work. And more importantly, they install the love that it takes to have the compassion to deal with other people. You got to be able to understand love before you go out into the world. Love has a big umbrella. that certain dynamics in your life will fall under that, and it'll all sometimes come back equal to them four-letter words. So my mom and my dad, they were definitely a big influence on me. But outside that, it's all phases in your life, So for me, it was my mom and my dad, and then it was the pastor of my church, the Reverend W.J. Hodge. I was born and raised a Baptist at Fifth Street Baptist Church, and then you got to look at his son Philip Hodge, which was our choir director. He was a leader. Leadership comes in different packages along the way, and you got to identify that. Sometimes you, in hindsight, you look back and say, okay, there was a leader here, there was a leader there. Then from there, it was the teachers. One of my favorite teachers was my first grade teacher. Her name was Miss Trice. She led by example. And back in the day, before all the child abuse allegations and stuff, she led by the power. So Mr. Cowell, I can name Mr. Cowell, my sixth grade teacher. He was a great leader. Going into junior high school, I had a basketball coach by the name of Warren Wainwright, who was definitely a main inspiration in my life, who pushed me right in the midst of me identifying my talent as a basketball player. He instilled in me confidence to say, hey, you got special talent. You need to realize that and try to hone in on your talents and don't take it for granted because you're a special person. Then I went to a male high school, and of course it was Way Houston and also George Chinsley, my two high school coaches. Way Houston was the head coach, and George Chinsley was the assistant coach. And they were at a pivotal time in a black male's career is probably your high school years. So having Coach Houston came from a great family structure. He brought that to us. He was just a father figure away from home to this day. And he guided us. He put confidence in us. He did not let up on us. He kept it real with us. He pushed us in the classroom and in the basketball court. He was my homeroom teacher. So my senior year, when all the mail started coming in for me to go to school, he would retrieve all the mail. And when we got to homeroom class, myself and Bobby Turner, we would go through our mail and take the bags of mail home and go through them. And a lot of them, the schools that we weren't interested in, we just got rid of them. And then leaving high school, Coach Houston signed with the University of Louisville as first African-American assistant. Then I ended up signing with the University of Louisville. So Coach Houston was still there along the way for me. And of course, you have Coach Crum, which I paid attention to. So that's another thing I want to point out is when you identify that leader, if you're not a leader, you need to pay attention to that leader. You need to learn from that leader because you can get a lot of good qualities from the leader. And the leader might do some things that are not fan friendly, student friendly, but you got to figure that out. Why is he doing that? And in the long run, if you stay the course, you'll understand. Okay, I see why Coach Crum did this. Or Way Houston, Coach Houston did this. Or I see why my mom and dad was on me hard when I was young. And now, as life goes on, you realize now I get it. Some people get it sooner than later. Well, the people that you surround yourself with, I had a tremendous group of people that I surrounded myself with. I'll never forget the time, a big pivotal connection for me in my life outside the basketball realm was when we were at Coach Crum's wedding in Las Vegas. And we took about 4 plane loads of alumni down there for the trip. It was a big trip. Anytime you go to Vegas, it's a magnet for everybody wanting to go. So we took right before the wedding, we were in a hotel. Coach Houston came up to me. He said, "Hey, Griff, I got some brothers that want to meet you." And I said, "Sure." And the 3 brothers that wanted to meet me was Bill, Bob, and John Yarmouth, the Yarmouth family. And that was a pivotal time in my life for relationship building. You deal with the coaches and all that. That's something there. But these three gentlemen, their family, they took me under their wings, and it was a very life-changing moment for me because they guided me in a different direction. My mindset. They were some young brothers, come from a great family, but they had a different mindset as far as the way I looked at things. I looked at things coming from high school, going to college, basically, other than what my parents taught me about being able to be prepared. But they looked at me from a standpoint of, okay, you're going to be a commodity. You're special. Let's tackle that from that point, subconsciously, not, to exploit me, because I love them to death to this day. But this is a different perspective. Just by saying going out, throwing the ball, playing, and people who are hollering at you, look at what can come from that, and be prepared for that. And they helped me tremendously in that direction. I mean, they were just, I can't say enough about the three brothers. To this day, they were great for me as far as going forward. And then, as life goes on, it was just, you go to the NFL, I mean, in the NBA, and you see how the leadership is there from a business standpoint. Because at the point that you leave University of Louisville, you really don't see the business part of it. But the Yarmouth brothers, particularly Bob and Bill, kind of like said, okay, here's the business side that you don't see as a young athlete, especially and particularly as a young African-American athlete, that you need to start incorporating into your vision and your sight going forward. And that was very helpful for me. Very helpful for me.
Oh, there was a lot in there you said that I'd like to follow up on. It's a good thing, Dr. Owens, you've got those two pens. You're going to run out of ink with these all these knowledge bombs that we're getting here. But I don't often hear this in leadership, but one of the first things you said there, Mr. Griffith, was that you have to be able to understand love when you go out into the world. And there's so many things that you can measure in business and in leadership and in life, but love is not one of the easiest ones, but it's from my perspective, it can be one of the most important ones, and it gets overlooked, I'm afraid.
Well, love, Dr. McGurk, it has a lot of subtitles. And one of the main subtitles, especially with leadership and being successful, is passion. If you look at passion, if you look at your family, you love your mom and dad, you're passionate about that. Your brothers and sisters, you're passionate. Are your wife, your kids, you're passionate about that. And also, if you want to be successful, you got to have that passion to put in that work.
Well, and you also mentioned the leaders close to you, and pay attention to the leaders close to you. And it's easy to think about a celebrity or someone that's on TV, or people look up to them, but often we'll overlook the people that are right there in our lives, that are day in and day out doing the good things that we can learn from, and the salt of the earth type of people. I also grew up in a Baptist church, and I was telling Susan, our friend, yesterday, that there was 2 requirements. You had to read the good book, and you had to have a 9 by 13 inch casserole dish and a recipe to bring to the pastor. We did a lot of eating. We were those kind of Baptists, but some of the people that are still there today are some of the best people I've met in my life, that are just salt of the earth, hardworking, honest. You believe in them, and look out for the younger generation. And I think that's a good one that I would take away from here, is surround yourself with the right people and pay attention to them, as you said. So,
and a lot oftentimes people measure success in celebrity and dollars and cents, and that's the wrong way to measure success. Everybody's not going to be a professional athlete. But there are more successful people outside of the athletic or the entertainment realm than there are entertainers and athletes.
Right.
Some of the most successful people don't have to make a multi-million-dollar contract. They don't have to be on TV all the time. I look at my teachers, all my teachers, I remember them by name, going from elementary school all the way to high school, they played an important part in me in my journey. But they were successful because every year they educated a group of people and passed them on.
Mm-hmm.
And they did that for years. That was their passion. They loved it. And they were successful because they put forth a lot of educated young people to move on to the next generation. Your parents, you look at them, my mom and dad, they didn't make a lot of money. Most successful people I know in my life.
Mm-hmm.
They raised the 3 children. They taught us integrity and love. And we came out and went into the world and did well for ourselves. Not well as far as, being a professional athlete or being owning a big business. Well, because of how we were able to navigate life. They showed us the roadmap to that, how to treat people, how to look out for the goods and the bad in people. And they taught us that this is the course you need to take to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't throw a dollar amount to it. Didn't talk about a goal. And we've done that, and I thank them for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dr. Owens, please.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think I'm gonna keep this pen because I'm getting a lot of good notes from Mr. Griffith here today. But you mentioned when you're talking about love and passion, and you talked about integrity, and I mean, I'm sure you have seen a lot of people maybe not come out and have some of those characteristics, some of those traits. But if you could, what do you think are 3 traits that you think up and coming leaders, young people, kind of making that transition, whether it be going from Louisville to start their first job or leaving Louisville to go into a professional sport? What are those 3 traits that you think that leaders need to have coming up in 2021?
First of all, they need to be a sponge.
Okay.
Soak in all the information that they can get as far as the goals they're trying to achieve. Surround yourself with good people. Notice the bad people.
Mm-hmm.
Learn from the bad. You can always learn from the bad. God is not always going to make it rosy for you. But even the good path and the bad path that God puts in front of you, they're all learning situations.
Mm-hmm.
You got to learn from it. You can't take the good and the bad and take that for granted.
Right.
The sponge factor is so important because you need to absorb all the positive information that you can get because you can learn from that. And with the information that's out there now, compared to when I was coming up, we didn't have no cell phones. I would tell us this quick story that in my communications class, Dr. Murray, I'll never forget this, week 2, he told us, he said, in the future, cable television will take over network TV. I remember to this day. And I'm like, we always looking at each other like, what's cable? And now look where we at. That's a vision, but he absorbed what was coming down the line. And he put it in front of us way ahead before it even happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it's here. And it's here strong. So with all the information that's out there that's easily to obtain now, the leaders have an advantage over the people coming up in my generation and before me, because there's so much information out there. Not only is there so much information, so much visual information.
Right.
Visual information is so powerful because it gets you to see. Reading and going to the, you have to visual. You put your vision in words. You try to figure out, okay, I'm gonna put this in this text. I'm trying to visualize it. Now the text is in living color, so it makes your mind spin even more because you can see what's happening. Think outside the box and learn from people that are not necessarily in your particular field that you're trying to achieve. Because what you will find with that is that the principles still apply.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at some other career path, the way that they succeed, achieve success, the principles are still there.
Right.
So that tells you that, okay, these principles will apply if I go do anything in life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very important to know that, and it gives you a broader context in your mindset of different things that you might come across.
No doubt, no doubt. That's I love that. I love being a sponge. I mean, this is an amazing interview, and I love the principles. When you look at I guess you know how you said everything kind of goes in phases.
Mm-hmm.
When you look back, from childhood, up to today, have you noticed that those same, that same sponge-like attitude, that same surrounding yourself with good people, paying attention to, the good and the bad, and that love, do you kind of see that as kind of have those always kind of been there, just maybe in different ways, but they've always been your roadmap for success?
Yes, because it was still me as a young kid through my parents.
Okay.
Again, as I mentioned earlier, that the same principles always apply.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be worded different. They might come from a different person, but they're all going to equal to be the same thing.
Yes.
And if you look at any successful person, a teacher, a guy who's working at Ford, has been a supervisor for 40 years,
mm-hmm.
that's a very successful person there.
Right.
And what that tells me, he had the passion, to stick with it, because a lot of people take career changes because they don't have that passion. And there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people make career shifts in their life that shift was very important and was needed for them to succeed. But when you look at the people who've been in the job for a long time, it's some of the most successful people to me, because if you ask them to sit down and have a conversation with them, them are some of the simple things that as a up and coming leader that you need to point out and recognize. Like, I'm gonna have a conversation with Dr. McGurk. He's been a professor for 40 years. Let me have a conversation with him, because that's quite an achievement.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't look at the smaller, and I'm not saying that you're small, Dr. McGurk, but the simple and the common success roadmaps that are around us every day. Right. Instead of having an interview with me or having an interview with Barack Obama or Michelle Obama, the interviews are all around you. I mean, there are more successful people all around you than just the people that you see in the limelight.
Most definitely. And Dr. McCart, you are not small. You are the man.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that you guys are where you at now, and you roadmap yourself, the principles are always still the same. And you just you reflect and put your mind in rewind, you'll see that you got good people around you, you got good people to guide you. Yeah. You got to start with your family and those who are Christians, your church, schools, all this a mainstay in your life. You just got to understand that. And for me, if anything comes out of this interview, is for people and young generation, is to point out to yourself, identify the important people that are around you through them phases.
Right. Man,
well, I appreciate that, Mr. Griffith, and it's really important, I think, to keep that long-term view. Whereas, it's our news cycles on very quick, and then there's a commercial and everything. We're programmed to have that short-term view, and that's why instead of the 40 under 40, I'm aiming at the 100 under 100. For the next 40 years, like you said, that long-term view, make an accomplishment. They're just chopping the wood, carrying the water day in and day out, and really trying to keep the nose to the grindstone there. And so I wanted to ask you, and as we sort of shift into a little more about your basketball story, but I want to point this out to our listeners, that you were one of the top 5 student athletes in the country when you graduated.
Yep.
And I mean, you have so much success. What's that, sir?
I said it's one of my most proudest achievements.
Well, and I want to ask you about that, because whenever I know Dr. Owens and I, when we were 22, I don't know that we were that focused, just from the things he's told me. I wasn't there with him, but I wasn't one of the top 5 of anything when it came to being academics, but I stuck with it. So here we are. But how did you have that long-term view at that age, and whenever you were having so much success over here that didn't necessarily require that? Can you tell us a little bit about that and what we can learn from it?
That award it was given to me, unbeknown knowing that I didn't even know that award was there. I was with the Jazz when that award was presented to me, and I had to fly from Utah, Salt Lake City to Miami to receive the award during my first year. PR guy came up and said, "Hey man, we got to book a flight to go to Miami. You received an award from college." I'm like, I thought college was over with. I thought I got all the awards I was supposed to get in college. He said, "You got voted as one of the top 5 student athletes in the country by the NCAA." And that award typifies the vision that I had when I went to University of Louisville. Remember, earlier in the podcast, I said I wanted to get my degree in 4 years. Mm-hmm. Wanted to win a national championship. That was all spilled up and stirred up into this one award. It had to deal with academics and athletic excellence and leadership. And that, brought a big smile to me and made me reflect and say, okay, this award is for me achieving the goals that I set for myself when I went to University of Louisville. So that's one of the most important awards that I've ever received.
Well,
and
I'm glad
it was a surprise that I didn't know it was out there. That you know that when you play basketball, college player of the year is out there. Right. Winning a national championship is out there. When you go to University of Louisville or whatever college you go to, that the end game is getting that degree. Mm-hmm. Not in 4 years. If you can, that's great. But just in general, getting your degree. All that was in that particular award.
Yeah. No, that's great. And especially it's kind of even sweeter when you were just doing the right thing and then got awarded for it. You weren't, you weren't aiming for it. I could see.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, it seemed like the senior year from the research I've done, your senior year was really your breakout year. Mm-hmm. And I was reading here that you really put some time in that summer, stayed focused in the gym, doing all the right things that would lead to that kind of success. Can you use that as a little bit of to tell us more about your basketball story and things we can learn from that can apply to our lives and our listeners?
Sure. I started playing ball at a young age. My first love was football. I was a big Jim Brown fan. Here in Kentucky and in Louisville, before the NFL exploded, the regional team that we had, the closest regional team to us was the Cleveland Browns. So they were on TV for us in the Louisville area for years. And I loved watching Jim Brown. Finally, first time I really got to meet him was unfortunately at Muhammad Ali's funeral. I sat right in front of him, and I just told him, I said, "Hey, man, I admire you for years. It was just an opportunity to say thank you for being an inspiration to me." And started playing basketball. My dad put up a basketball goal in the back of our garage. And then the passion and the love just shifted. I just fell in love with the game of basketball. Not knowing, not having any goals, just fell in love with the game. Mm-hmm. Didn't know what kind of special talents I had, didn't recognize them. Started dunking the basketball in 7th grade. And then, some of my older friends and people were like, "Dude, that ain't normal." And I'm like, I thought that, looking at TV guys dunking the ball, that what he said, but not in the 7th grade. So that all went over my head. I just was a kid loving to play basketball. We, had afros and we had a dirt court, and we would play so much basketball in the back of our garage. Myself, my brother Michael, Mark Hill, Bobby Turner, Darrell and Derek Drake. We would have our froze would be dusty, gray, and we would get a hose from our house and bring it all the way out to the back just to dampen the wood gravel down and the dirt down so the dust would not come up. So from there, I went to Duval Junior High School. And that is when I started really realizing that I had some special talent, because by playing ball and being able to do some things and achieve what the other kids weren't able to do, and people pointed it out to me, it was like, okay, I might be able to do something with this talent. We played in the pro division of the Dirt Bowl. When I came up, the Kentucky Colonels were in town. And Coach Crummett just got to University of Louisville in 71, 72. So basketball was really in the air from a professional standpoint and from a college standpoint, even from a high school standpoint. I mean, we had one high school game here in Louisville. We played Central High School, and to this day, it's the highest ranking attendance for one high school game. We sold out Freedom Hall just for one game, Maryland Central. That's how big high school basketball was when we were coming up. So during that era, it was when I started to realize, as I said earlier, what kind of talent I had. So I went to Male High School with Coach Houston, and we really came into our own as far as seeing that these guys got a future. We on the radar of, when I say these guys, I'm speaking of my teammate Bobby Turner, we're on the radar of colleges now. As I got to my senior year, I became on the radar of professional teams. But, you know, with the leadership of Coach Houston and my mom and dad, you know, they kept me to have a level head. And that came up from being around my dad and keeping me level and keeping me grounded. I always would run things past my dad and particularly Coach Houston as far as the guidance concerned, because I'm going into a different phase mindset-wise as a young African-American kid. Okay, now you just went from loving the game to like people love you for your game, and you got to make some decisions as a young man on what course of direction you're going to take to fulfill that basketball aspect. But keeping in mind that the choice I got going to college, you got to know that you got to have the educational part of it before you can even play basketball. So you got to be able to and have the guidance to say, okay, you getting a scholarship to go to the University of Louisville or whoever choose you want to, but you going there to get your degree. That's the first and foremost, because if you don't get your education, plan B ain't going to come into play. So that's how I ended up choosing the University of Louisville. Again, #1 high school player in the nation. Had a great career at the Male High School that transcended into the University of Louisville. Again, set goals, try to win the national championship, and by the grace of God, it happened in reverse order. Got a national championship first and got my degree in May.
Well, thank you for that. Basketball I grew up in Southern Indiana. It's just, I love the basketball attitude around here, those high school games. I really miss that about COVID because you can't just pack a stadium like we used to, but hopefully those days are going to kind of come to an end here. But, well, Dr. Owens, please, why don't you move on with the next question?
Yeah, so we'd be remiss if we all we did was talk about sports and didn't really talk about what Mr. Griffin is doing for the University of Louisville currently. So could you tell our listeners, for those outside of the Louisville area, we know that, or for those that don't know, Mr. Griffith is an ambassador for the institution. So can you tell our listeners about your current role with the University of Louisville, maybe what it is you are doing, or where people can see you, or some of the initiatives you got coming up, or what's going on?
Yes, back in November, I was hired to be University ambassador out of the office of the president under President Neely's direction, and was grateful and honored to be back at the University of Louisville. I was at the University of Louisville for 11 years prior to coming back, and the whole landscape and the mindset of leadership has changed. In the two leadership between President Ramsey and now between President Neely. Not only has that changed in the 3-year hiatus that I had, it's that the mindset of the nation has changed. And with any major change, you got to have, your leaders got to be able to adapt and have that kind of change in their mindset and their path going forward, and the way they lead. Particularly President Neely, and meeting with her, I seen that she had a great vision and passion. And that's the key word that I first met her. I just fell in love with, is her passion for the goals that she set. Now, granted, you gotta understand, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. She set goals for this university, and she's passionate about achieving them goals. And this, before I even thought about coming back on board at university, this is what I learned from her right off the bat. I see why she was chosen president.
Mhm.
You can, when you meet a leader, you should know why that leader was in that role.
Mhm.
And she, right off the bat, I understood that. So my role here at University of Louisville as an ambassador, that's the umbrella that goes over the whole landscape of the university. I can be with college admissions with Jenny Sawyer, or I can do something with the 14 development officers and their staff. They can say, "Hey, Griff, we need you to come help cultivate a donor." Or Jenny could say, "Hey, we need you to go to one of these high schools and help us tell the seniors and the juniors that are thinking about going to college that University of Louisville should be the place to go."
Mhm.
Them are some of the things that, from the political realm of it, going to different gubernatorial events representing the university. Because people don't realize the makeup of a university is not just athletics and education. There's a political side of it and the gubernatorial side of it, because that's where we get a lot of research funding from. You got to be able to get the state funding in order to make a university successful and a program successful going forward. Not only have you got to get the funding, you got to be able, as a leader, and President Needham's doing a great job of, and the whole entire staff at the University of Louisville is being able to distribute the dollars for the mindset, get the talent to make this a great university. I want to point out to people that it was brought to my attention by my brother, is that we kind of take the University of Louisville for granted. We drive past it and we see from the expressway, we see buildings going up, and it's a nice building going up, and that looks good, and they got a new stadium, a new classroom. But you have to come on campus to appreciate and look at this university from an internal visual part of it, to see that we're a major player in the educational field. People don't really realize that until they step foot on campus. And I use my brother as an example. We had a men's day for our church, and we were looking for a place to have a men's day picnic for the guys in the men's ministry. Mm-hmm. And I told my brother, I said, "Hey man, they got a place right off. You see it right off the expressway it's like a little patio place with an enclosure over by the women's softball stadium. Let's take a look at that and see if we can get that." So after church one day, we went over and met. And my brother hadn't been on campus since I left. Well, he came and played some pickup games, but I say probably back in the early 90s. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "Look, bro," he said, "Man, take me through this campus, man. It's really the first time I really, peeped out what's going on." And he's been living here all his life. He didn't have an 11-year hiatus like I did going to Utah. And he was amazed. Mm-hmm. Walking around through the campus, and I drove through the campus. He was like, "Man, this place is serious." He said, "I didn't know this was here," because we see the peripheral of the campus and not the internal of the campus. The buildings that's going up, and the buildings go up for a reason. We're advancing in these fields, and we need these buildings in order to educate these kids and to see how the university was when he was coming on campus, watching me practice, and to see it grow to what it is now. That let me know that a lot of people in this community that really don't see the internal landscape of the university doesn't really realize how important this institution is to this community, and how far we have come as an institution to better educate and to be a better partner with the citizens of this community. So that's one of the things that made me proud to come back and work for the University of Louisville, is to push the agenda from a whole different perspective. You see me playing basketball, but now I'm in a whole different role to set a whole landscape of the university and make sure it's represented well in the community.
Yeah, I can definitely tell your passion about, helping the University of Louisville. I can hear it in your voice. I can see it in your body language. That's amazing. That's great. That's great. They have a great ambassador. Dr. McCart.
Yeah, thank you. And Mr. Griffith, I'd like to hear a little more about your role as ambassador and all the different things that you can do, because research here. You're get involved in your to get healthy now, helping people encourage physical movement and do more of that. Colon cancer awareness, wearing blue for that. They mentioned the anti-racism agenda in another article I read about it. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about what you hope to see. We talked about the university being a Research One university growing. It is a big deal. My parents had the exact same experience. They had seen it on the news, bits and pieces, and on the periphery. But when I took them through the heart of it, and they've been around this area 70 years. They didn't know how big a deal it was either. So I can echo your brother's experience with that. But how do you think things will change? What goals, back to goals, and President Benaputi, we talked to her, and she's one for setting bold goals, and right away decided to purchase the Kentucky One assets and jump into a $1.8 billion enterprise. I mean, she's a great leader there. So how do you see the partnership with her and working together into the future, and what goals do you hope to achieve?
First of all, using the hospital as an example, she has great vision. Yeah. I mean, think about it. You know, she took over all the assets from Kentucky One, formerly Jewish Hospital, and turned it around. She's seen the vision enough to say that, oh, wait a minute, we need to acquire this. You know, this is right in our community. We're hospital oriented already. Let's acquire it. Now, acquiring is one thing. Making it work is another. You know, having the leadership teams to make it successful. And I'm proud to see everywhere you go, UofL Health. You know, you go in other cities and you see the cities in the universities in that city, they got their names on everything from a health standpoint. And to have that here in University of Louisville is awesome because they've taken over a lot of properties and they've done well with them. So as far as the changes I mentioned earlier about you have to be able to adapt to the changes, is that unfortunately, I've said this before, God works in mysterious ways as far as getting our attention, as far as the world things concerned, you know, and he uses bad to do that sometimes. And we got to be able to grow from the bad, from the last 4 years of the administration to the things that went on during that. We got to recognize that, and changes are being made because of that for the better. And the most important thing, change-wise, that we need to adapt to, that President Neely is adapting to, that was put right in our face, is George Floyd's murder. You've been hearing about police brutality and racial equality for a long time. And America, particularly white America, has just been hearing it. And George Floyd incident was live and living color. And God used that for a reason. You know, he showed that here's what you've been hearing from African Americans and people of color for years. So you're not really taking heed to it. So I'm going to show you. And unfortunately for George Floyd and his family, you know, he had to pass, but it woke up America to see that, oh, shoot, this is real. We've been hearing. We're seeing it now. You know, the evolution of cell phones has changed the landscape of what we see. Instead of complaining about, we people are showing you what we complained about. And to see that, if you notice, from that point on, that the landscape of diversity and inclusion has gained ground all across America, as far as the institutions concerned, as far as workplace concerned, it's gained ground because it was in our face to say, there's a problem that we've been listening to, but now we get it, and we have to do something about it in America. And President Neely is doing that here at the University of Louisville with her initiatives that she set forth for all the faculty and staff, and wanted to be a anti-racism university. And that's a powerful thing to do. And along with being a Tier 1 research university and incorporate all that into being a better place to get educated here at the University of Louisville. So we have to be mindful of all that. I think America's seeing it now and being more mindful because you see the institutions that are reacting to it. I use another example with Starbucks, that situation with the two guys going into Starbucks and how they were racially tormented. And what did Starbucks do? Immediately, because a lot of companies and institutions will say they're going to do something, and you can really tell how serious and passionate they are by the dollars and changes that they apply to make that happen. What did Starbucks do? Shut everything down, I think, for a week or two, committed $100 million to diversity and inclusion. And that lets you know that they were serious, that they had a serious mindset to make this change. And I respect them for that. And I think a lot of institutions are following suit. But it had to be by example. And now going forward, it shouldn't have to be by example. It should be because it's what we need to do. It should be something general that you want to do and you want to have a passion to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, you make a great point there. Talk is cheap, but whenever they're willing to let their profits suffer to really make a change, then that's how you can tell who's serious, who's really committed to the cause, or if they're just committed just because it's the popular thing to do, or if they're willing to put their money where their mouth is. So.
And that's what we're doing here at the University of Louisville. And then that's a big draw for me to go out into the community to make sure that, not only dealing with all the other issues that the university, not issues, but goals and accomplishments the University of Louisville wants to get out to the community so we can get more students to come to the University of Louisville. But we got to be able to project to the community that we're a university of integrity and that we want to put out great students. We got Bill Bright scholars that we can toot our hats on, but everybody's not going to be able to be a Bill Bright scholar. But the achievements of the young people going to get their degrees and going on to do great things from the degree at the University of Louisville is our number one goal.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dr. Owens, I can kind of see why Joe Rogan has a 3.5-hour podcast, because you're just about the hour mark. You start to get into the good stuff here. So, well, I'll hand it over to you, and you could bring us home.
Yeah. So, Dr. Duncanstein, if you don't mind me calling you that, because we're about to go have a little fun. We're gonna have a little fun. So we'll use some nicknames, have a little fun. So this session is what we call rapid fire. We have 5 questions I'm going to ask you. The first thing that comes to your mind, go ahead and answer it with the best answer you got. Dr. Duncanstein, are you ready for Cardinal Call rapid fire?
Okay, let's go.
Here we go. First question. If you could pick one word that would describe your life so far, what would it be and why? One word. Go.
Amazing.
Oh, I like it. So why amazing?
Because I've been through good times and bad times, and mentally I'm still here. I'm healthy. I'm fortunate enough that my 90-year-old mom is still with me. Mm-hmm. I have 4 great kids, 7 great grandchildren. I am in a place in my life where I just feel that God has blessed me, and the fruits from all the things that good or bad happened to me up until this point, it just equals amazing.
Okay. I like that. Amazing is like my favorite word. If anybody's ever seen me do some marketing, I always capitalize on amazing. So you'll pass. We'll move on to round 2. Here we go. Rapid fire number 2. What are 3 non-negotiable characteristics that anyone on your team or tribe has to have?
You got to have confidence.
Mm-hmm. You
have to have passion.
Yep. One more.
And then you got to have, and I'm going to use passion as love, and you got to have vision.
Okay. I like it. Round 3. Dr. Duncanstein, what is your favorite dessert?
My mom's German chocolate cake.
Ooh, okay. I like it. Next question.
It's for my birthday every year.
Here we go. If you weren't in Louisville, where would you be working?
That's an interesting question because, coming from Louisville and being a world traveler like I've been, and being and living in, working in different cities through the NBA, I've always thought about being in a major market. Mm-hmm. Even when I played for Utah, unfortunately, I was in Utah for Salt Lake City for 11 years. But going to the LAs, to Las Vegas, to the Atlantas, and feeling that vibe is totally different from being in Louisville, being in Salt Lake City. So being in a major market would always be something that I would have wanted to do. And out of the major markets, probably the city that I really enjoy the most, other than the traffic, would probably be Los Angeles.
Okay. LA traffic is a beast.
Yeah.
Round 5, last question. If you could sit with a 13-year-old self, what would you tell him?
That's a good question. I would say 13-year-old self in the future. For one thing, all that hair you got on your head is not going to be there. And pay attention to your dad from that aspect, because he's going bald. So you need to pay attention to what's going to be you're going to look like in the future. I would tell myself to be more observant and stay away from the silly stuff.
Okay. You have successfully passed rapid fire. But before we let you go, there is one question we have asked every guest. It has stumped every guest. So, of course, until it doesn't stump a guest, I'm not going to stop asking the question. Last question we have for you today. If your life was the title of a book, made up or real, what would it be and why?
If my life was the title of a book, what would it be and why? I would say the name of that book should be He Has Overcome. And I take that from We Shall Overcome during the Civil Rights Movement. That the Civil Rights Movement, that book typified what you have to go through to overcome everything that the world has to throw at you, especially being African American in this world, and the racism that you're going to have to deal with. Maybe not as prevalent as Civil Rights Movement, but it still exists. And the overcoming part of it means that the obstacles in your life, you have to overcome them. And we all are going to have obstacles in our lives that we have to overcome, whether it be death or setbacks or in your family or just in general. So I think that book would spell a story of a young man growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, didn't have a lot of goals in the beginning, developed goals, had setbacks, still standing, fell down and got up, and persevered to the point to where he is now. Surround himself with good people, had great friends to get advice from, and humble enough to where you can go to friends or your family members with things that go on in your life that other people might not even know about, that you can be able to be humble enough to get advice from the people that you surrounded yourself with, and to be able to be at a point in your life where you can share some of them experiences and make them positive for the next generation coming up.
I like it. So before we let you go, we just want to ask you one last quick thing. What would be your wise counsel that you would shout from the mountaintops that, if that you wanted everyone to know about you, about Louisville, about life, love, happiness, passion, leadership, all of it? If you could tell everybody, what would that be?
So if I could shout something from the mountaintop, it would be to make the world a better place. Look past the color of your skin. Look in someone's heart and try to develop other people's hard heart that may not be on the same page as your love and compassion for each other.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Mr. Darrell Griffith, a.k.a. Dr. Duncanstein. Mr. Griffith, first of all, on behalf of the Cardinal Call podcast, thank you immoderately for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you are an ambassador for the institution. You have a million things going on your schedule. And so I just want to thank you for taking time out of your day to come on the Cardinal Call podcast to share a little bit of your wisdom with all of our listeners and viewers out there who are trying to get their degree or already having success in businesses or have this degree. And so we thank you for sharing your leadership insight, your learning insight, and your acumen of how you're trying to make the city of Louisville and the university a much better place.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed the conversation and enjoyed meeting you guys and look forward to working with you guys and enjoy what you're doing with the podcast. Keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. McCart, my pen, the papers, they really meant nothing today. I think I did. In some instances, I've actually listened more than I actually took notes. Mr. Griffith is an amazing individual who's doing an amazing job. What are your thoughts?
Well, you're right, and it's refreshing to see somebody who's been at the highest levels and still at the highest levels and continuing to reach higher and higher, to be so humble and to focus on really doing the right thing. You mentioned integrity, loving others, a real heart-centered approach to his leadership. He's really focused on his roots and coming back to Louisville, being close with his family. There were just so many things that maybe just offhand comments that he said, but that are just his way of being. And I loved hearing about that. And I think this is somebody that we can look up to, Dr. Owens. I know it is, that we can really model ourselves after and be glad we did and into the future. So, and one other thing I'll say, he may not believe this, but my mom fixes German chocolate cake for me on my birthday. So if he's willing, if he's listening to this, I'd love to have a taste off. We'll get together on his birthday and my birthday, and we'll sit around and eat cake and talk about the University of Louisville and see what we got.
Hey, since we're throwing it out there, I'm going to throw my mom in the challenge. She makes hers at Christmas and Thanksgiving. That's the only time she makes it at the year. German chocolate cake at Christmas and Thanksgiving. I will definitely enter my mom into this race, and we can have the German chocolate cake bake-off. My mom's listening, so when she hears this, sorry, Mom, but you're going to have to make an extra German chocolate cake, and I'm going to give it to Dr. McCart and Dr. Duncanstein, and we're going to figure out whose mom has some really good German chocolate cake around these parts.
I don't think anybody will lose in that competition. We'll just have a cake off.
Listen, we're just going to get fat. That's all that's going to happen. Everybody's going to have a bunch of calories. We're going to have to enroll in that healthy vision, that healthy lifestyle that Mr. Griffin was talking about, that he's supporting as an ambassador for the institution.
That's right. No, this was a real treat, though, Dr. Owens. It was great to hear, and I say this every week, but another example of a great leader and a great person pushing the city of Louisville and the University of Louisville forward in a way that is just bound to be a better world here in Louisville and in general going into the future. There's so many smart people, capable, caring people working on it. It's inevitable.
Oh, no doubt. One thing I think one of my takeaways from this is he is very serious about goals and passion, and they have to go hand in hand. They're not two separate things. It's not you got to have goals and you got to have passion, or you got to have passion. It's like this mix. It's like goals dash passion. It's one thing, and they drive and feed off each other. And I think that's phenomenal. And you can see why he's had success on and off the court. There's no doubt about it, because he does those things that he's passionate about, and he finds those goals that get him out of bed and to do those great things every day. And I would just say the same thing to all of our listeners and viewers out there. Find those goals, make those goals, and then be passionate about what you're setting and go after it. I know our students in the UofL program, they've set that goal, they set those passions, and they're chugging through each one of these courses 8 weeks at a time, frustrated, confused, can't figure out Blackboard, haven't been in school in 10, 15, 20 years, use the PLA to save, the PLA course to save money. So they're here, and we're going to do everything we can to get you across that finish line. No matter where you are, right? Whether you're in a military member in the state of Washington, or you're right downtown in Louisville, Kentucky, we're going to get you across that finish line. So that being said, I would like to thank all of our listeners and viewers for joining us today. You can check us out as well as all of our previous pods at UofL.me/leadership-pod. Again, that's UofL.me/leadership-pod. Again, as the vaccine is starting to get things under control across the nation, across the country, one day we hope that you would join us in the classroom, either virtually or on campus, to get that degree that you've always wanted so that you can get ahead in life. We offer online bachelor's and master's, as well as certificate leadership programs in a wide range of industries, everything from healthcare to education to human resources. You can find those when you check us out at UofL.me/podcast-OLL. Again, that's UofL.me/podcast-OLL. Final thoughts, closing words, Dr. McCart, what do you got?
All right, set big goals, be passionate and loving, and stay away from the silly stuff. I mean, you heard it all right here from Mr. Griffith. That's sounds like a recipe for success to me.
I love it. As we say around here, you can count the number of seeds in an apple, but you cannot count the number of apples in a seed. When you teach, you never know how many lives you will influence. Cardinal Nation, keep leading, keep learning, and keep influencing. We hope to see you soon. But until then, don't forget to like, subscribe, and download everything connected to us. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. Leave notes. Listen, we'll give you shout outs in the beginning of our segment. Follow us, like us, give us comments, tell us what you like, what you don't like. We'll take it all. We're just trying to improve this podcast to make your life, your leadership, and your learning as best as we possibly can. If you want more information connected to the UofL program, don't forget to do all those things, because as new podcasts, as leadership minutes, learning minutes, and everything connected to the podcast is going to be coming out. All those channels, you will stay notified and get your updates. Until then, take care, ladies and gentlemen, and stay safe.